All right, we are ready to start rolling here tonight. Okay, a couple of announcements. If you're new and you need to pay your membership dues tonight, Michaela is your lady. She will take your $20 for your dues. One thing just want to talk about, make everyone aware, last month we had a little mishap with childcare where a child was on the loose. They were located.
For a long extended period of time.
They weren't safe. Amber's not allowed to talk right now. They were located, they were safe. We're making some adjustments to how we do things with our babysitters here. So making sure that you sign your kids in because they're gonna rely on that for the count of children that they should be accountable for. And that would help us to make sure that when we do travel out to the playground, which our days are numbered on the playground, we have them, but they're gonna do a count before they leave the space, a count when they leave the treehouse tonight to make sure they have everyone. And then we're gonna ask that as we're dropping off kids, the gates are shut until your kids enter, shut when they exit, same on the pickup, so kids can't slip out at those points too. So we're just gonna shore up those little gaps to make sure that we've got everything covered. And if anybody has any other ideas to help improve that, we welcome all that input.
We're gonna have babysitters too.
Yeah, if you want to put a child on the list, we're trying to do 16 and older because there are a lot of kids and some kids with high needs. So we feel like 16 is the right age of maturity to be able to handle what might walk into that room and the chaos with the number of kids. So if you think you have a child that's a little bit younger but very mature and capable and responsible, we'd love to put them on the list and have a bit more of a rotation through kids and options, because things come up, activities, sickness. Tonight we had sickness come up with one of our sitters that we had secured. So we want good quality people in there because it makes it easy for you guys to come and to feel comfortable staying and not have to worry about what screams are coming from in that room. Right? You're like, oh, they got it covered and I don't have to worry about it. So other thing, next month, we are talking some security type topics with one of our foster parents sharing some of what he's learned along the way. And I think that's gonna be a really good topic. I don't know about you guys, but internet safety and cell phones and right? Where do you even start? So I think it'll be a really good topic. But tonight, Amber's gonna introduce our speakers.
Thank you.
So, and one other thing, back to the dues, if you've paid your dues, make sure that you guys sign up and register for the door prize. So story time, because you guys know me, story time. So a couple months ago, one of the foster parents had reached out to me and said, we really would like to hear a topic on autism. And I was like, okay, I can, I'll search for someone. And fast forward about 2 weeks from the point that this individual asked me, I actually happened to run into Crystal at a coffee shop, and we actually spoke about land for Haven Hills. And as we were talking about Haven Hills and land and all the process and stuff going on, she had brought up that her son is autistic. And I was like, God, this is why you put this lady in my life, right? So I asked Crystal if she would be willing to tell her story about her son and all of the tips and tricks she's learned throughout the many years. And actually, she has invited a guest, Kira. And Kira's got a huge, long professional name behind her, so I'll let her explain that. But Kira has been with Crystal's son from the very beginning, all 11 years, right? And doing a lot of therapy and stuff. So both of them are gonna be able to kind of give us lots of tips and tricks. So keep the questions coming, okay guys? Crystal and Kira.
Okay, sounds good.
So I'm Crystal, this is Kira, like she said. My son's 11. When he was 2, let me go back just a little bit. When he was like a year and a half, he was learning words. He was doing normal, typical things that kids would do. He was, he would jump, let's just say. He would jump on the bed one weekend and he would start saying jump. And then the next week, and all of a sudden, it was like he couldn't remember how to say jump. And then, there was times where he would be clapping and doing stuff, and then all of a sudden, a couple months went by and he started hand clapping instead. It's like he wouldn't remember how to clap. He wasn't really talking. at the age of 2. He was about to turn 2. My sister said to me, you know, maybe you should call in VII. I didn't really know what VII was, you know, early intervention. I have this just in case I get emotional. But anyways, he wasn't really talking, and so she was like, why don't you just call in, see, you know, maybe they can just check with him, see if, you know, he needs a therapist or maybe just speech, you know, can't get the words out. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll call them in. I didn't really notice as a mom some of the things that he was doing that other people could see. Eye contact, you know, he always made eye contact with me. You know, I thought maybe he couldn't hear, I wasn't sure, you know, but then a cartoon would come on and he would come running out of his room. So it was like, well, he could hear that. You know, he started to just look at things instead of asking or pointing or normal typical things that kids do at that age. And so it started to kind of hit me that he might be, you know, something's going on there. So I called in VSEP, they came in, you know, I said, people keep bringing up to me, he could have autism. I have a step nephew who's severely autistic who was adopted by my stepbrothers. And I thought, he's not like him, you know, like that doesn't seem right. You know, I didn't want to believe it. And so VSEP came in and I brought it up. I was like, you know, do you think he could have autism? And they were like, well, we can't say that yet because we just met him. We got to spend some time with him. So fast forward 6 weeks, they kind of came over twice a week, spent some time with him. They would evaluate him. Then they brought in West Central Human Services. And I didn't know any of these people. I didn't know any of these services. I didn't, you know, they just kept saying, hey, you should bring this person in. Hey, you should bring this person in. I'm like, okay, you know. After about 6 weeks, they said, yeah, he has autism. You know, we don't know where he's at on the spectrum. It's called autism spectrum disorder. It's a wide range of, you know, some kids are way over here, some kids are way over here. They're all different. And they all kept saying to me, you know what, he seems really high functioning. So I think, you know, by the time he gets to kindergarten, you won't even be able to tell. And I'm like, well, like, you know, looking for positives, right? You really don't know what to expect. I had no idea what to expect. So basically, as the years went by, well, first off, after about 6 weeks, they told me he had to get evaluated to get all these services, that there were things that you could do. And in order to get on those services, you had to go through the proper steps, which I had no idea. So I was basically just doing exactly what people kept telling me to do. I kept thinking, I just want him to live the best life. I want him to have as many resources and tools that he possibly can to be typical, you know, since he's atypical, and be accepted in society, you know. Try not to think about what it's going to be like when he gets older yet because he's so young. And everyone kept telling me, oh, well, he's going to be better by kindergarten. You're not going to be able to tell. You don't have to, you know, everything will be fine. So then he went and he was evaluated. That was when autism waiver, it was fairly new. There was the traditional waiver. People were telling me, there's a traditional waiver he can get on, he can get all these services, or there's the autism waiver, he can get all these services. It was all foreign to me. I was like, I don't even know what that is. You know, what does that mean? But I applied and I went through all the steps. He went to a psychiatrist. She was newer, but she had some consulting other psychiatrists there, and they determined that he did have autism. He was more in the middle of the spectrum. And so from there, they just kept saying, this is what you gotta do. You know, now he has this, he can have ADA services, he's gonna get on Medicaid. And they gave me like all of these services. I still didn't know like what this meant or how much time, how much paperwork, all of that stuff that you have to do in order to receive these services. But I did it all, and I continue to do it all because I want him to have the best life possible. Some people always say, well, you know, what is it? Like, what happens? Or, you know, how does he behave? His name's Edison. He's never been a behavioral child. He's never, you know, banged his head or broken things or hit or kicked. He didn't do any of that stuff. He was just kind of like kept to himself. I used to call them trash magazines, my, like Life magazine, or, the In Touch, those trashy magazines. I mean, at the grocery store. I used to really like them, right, with the stars and all the, National Enquirer and stuff. And he would sit there and just page through one by one, and he would do it for like an hour. And my older son, who was 2.5 years older than him, was so constant with me. He was just hyper and constant, and mom, 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 mom. And I was like, oh, I finally have a kid that just doesn't want me, like just wants to sit there and like just look at trash magazines, or he would, or he would go outside and he would draw with sidewalk chalk, and it was like Picasso. I mean, it was every color. I don't know what he was drawing all the time, but he would draw so many things, but he still really wasn't talking. So then after about 3 to 4 months after we got his diagnosis, I took him into ear, nose, and throat, because I was like, this is just so, so weird. He's still just kind of acting, not just the autism part of it, but something else was going on. And I took him in, and he needed tubes in his ears. He was pretty much deaf. He could not hear, which I didn't realize. So we did that, and I brought him home. And my mom walked in probably an hour after the surgery, and he looked right at her. And sorry. It was a big moment, because I was like, oh my God, he couldn't hear, and I didn't know. So it made me feel bad. But then all of a sudden he started to make a little bit more eye contact with people. And then he started to say like words here and there. So when he got to 3, he learned his ABCs in one day. Like, he flat out just grabbed them, laid them out, said them all. He'd just walk and go A, B, C, D, and I was just like, oh my God, like how does this kid know this? He knew all his colors. He knew how to write things, but I didn't know this yet. And all of a sudden I'd go outside and sidewalk chalk would be everywhere with like words. And I was like, oh my God, like he does know things. He's just not, I guess, able to tell me. Then he started really getting into music and art and all of this very artistic videos, Taylor Swift. In love with hair, in love with Taylor Swift, in love with guitars, since he could even look at a guitar. And so he started memorizing, and I mean, like, would watch something one time, and he would memorize the whole video. Their facial expressions, their actions, the words. He could recite everything to you, but you couldn't have a conversation with him. And so I just started giving him a lot of things that I knew that he really liked, and it was very specific things. He would line things up. He wouldn't, I don't know what the word is. He wouldn't play like a normal, typical child. He would do different things with his toys. That really didn't make sense, but to him they made sense. So, over the years, people always ask questions about, how he is and the behavior and stuff like that. And honestly, like ages 2 to 7, really, well, to 6, he was, whatever I said or wherever I went, he would just go and do things. Now he's kind of gotten a voice. He was pretty nonverbal, I would say, until about kindergarten. And then the whole, he'll be fine at kindergarten was not true. Like, he's still not. He has gotten so much better, and he has taken huge strides from when he was younger. But every year there's different things that he decides is going to be a problem. There's a lot of control. There's a lot of control over mom versus everybody else. Some of the things that I've had to deal with him is my schedule. I'm in real estate. It's a very demanding career. I'm a broker, so I kind of am more demanded of, I guess. And my schedule is all over the place. So trying to leave once we're home is kind of a problem with him. I have to work around him or get sitters. And even if dad's home, there's a lot of stuff with dad where he just doesn't want dad to do anything. He just wants me to do it. So even if dad comes home and the sitter's there, he will not let the sitter leave until I come home. So there's stuff that's like that. When he was younger, I would leave, go to the grocery store or go show a house, and I would try to come back. And I'd always have to be on the phone. My neighbors probably thought I was crazy, but they all know us very well. I would drive into my driveway and I could hear him in the house, like, no, she didn't do it, no. And we would be like, what? Like, because he can't really tell you what's going on, but I didn't come in the right way, you know? And I would have to literally redo this like 10 times before he would let me in the house because I didn't do it right. Or he would be screaming about it because he couldn't articulate to us like what the problem was, you know? And after a while, you have to kind of decide, you know, like, is this behavioral? Is this autism? You know, a lot of things that I read when he was younger was if things don't go right and he can't express himself, like autism, they physically feel pain inside, like it hurts them as they're like, you know, because they can't get their words out or they can't explain things to you. So I would always think about that. And then they'd be like, oh my God, I gotta do this. I gotta just do what he needs me to do to get him past this point. Because when the world's not right in Edison's world, like everything shuts down. We cannot move forward with our day. Like my other son cannot have people over. Nobody can come to the house. If people come unexpected, show up unexpected, they have to leave. This was all like ages 2 to 7. It was pretty, he just had little things that he had to have them a certain way. Never really, other than that though, like when things would go wrong or he, you know, if I didn't come in the driveway the right way or whatever, he was a very happy kid. He's very lovable. People literally fall in love with him, everybody that has worked with him. And I'm sure it's because he was one of the easier ones to deal with back then. But as he's gotten older and gotten a voice, he definitely is a little bit more defiant like a preteen is. Let's see, what else? There were times where, you know, trips are a big thing. Put him in the car, how's that gonna go, right? We used to live in Bozeman, and so we would go back every year. And it was fine when he was in diapers because it wasn't that big of a deal, but when he was potty training, he would refuse to go to the bathroom at any place other than once we got there. And it was 8 hours to Bozeman. So he would literally eat, drink the whole way there, and he would not go to the bathroom. He would hold it. I don't know how he would hold it. That's a small platter for 8 hours, but he would hold it, and then he would just be miserable. And then all of a sudden the behavior would come out at a different time because of that, but I wouldn't know that. So later that night he would just throw a random, like, all of a sudden something's wrong. That was never wrong before. And that's more of what's happening now with him. I feel like he has gotten so much therapy through Ann Carlson and the school and you know, just OTs and speech and everything, that he doesn't have as much control over those things. Like when he goes to Ann Carlson, he doesn't have control. There's rules, he has to follow the rules and the structure there. Same thing at school. I've gotten them to really talk to each other and like, if there's something going on at school, let's talk to Ann Carlson, let's bring everybody together. So we're all on the same page, so he has the same expectations wherever he's at. But then he'll come home and he'll decide something's wrong. For example, a couple weeks ago, he came home and he decided that he wanted to kick off his shoes into the closet, which he does every day. But that particular day, he didn't want any other shoes touching his shoes. So now it was a 30-minute meltdown, really, of, you know, how am I supposed to move these shoes? Or why is this all of a sudden a problem? And that's just autism. Like you can try to prepare, you can try to like be ready for anything and everything, but it'll get you. Like it doesn't matter what you do, it's gonna be something new. We went to Nashville the beginning of September for my mom's 70th birthday. I don't fly with him very often because I know how stressful it is for him. We are the last ones on the plane. And let me back up just a little bit. I always do a social story. It has a ton of pictures. He's very visual. And the thing with Edison is if it's written down, it's a rule. So to him, if I write down, oh, this is happening, or 9:30 bedtime, or 8:30 bath time, or so-and-so is coming over at 5, oh, it's a rule, like that, you know, but if I just try to tell him that, it could get to that time and he will not be okay with it. So we were going to Nashville, direct flight only, right? Drove to Fargo, I figured can't drive to Fargo and get on a plane right away. So we stayed overnight in a hotel, let him swim, he loves swimming. Got through that, well, the plane was delayed. So it was 4 hours that night of us not leaving when we were supposed to and getting closer and closer to midnight, which in his mind, he can't go to bed past midnight. So he was freaking out about us leaving and having to get on a plane after midnight. I didn't know how I was going to get him even in the car to go through TSA to even get to the airport to get him on a plane at 1:17 in the morning and arrive at 3:45 a.m. Well, finally at 11:45 at night, they canceled the flight until the next day, which they could have done, you know, like 4 hours prior, because then it would have really saved me a nice meltdown. And by that time, you know, my husband was shut down because it's really hard, I think, when this happens with Edison, I'm the only one who can do anything about it. He will not let dad help him. He will not let dad get him a drink. He won't let dad get him food. Dad's there for tickles. Dad's there for at night before he goes to bed to hang out with him, but that's it. Like he just, it's all about, sometimes I think it's a lot about control over me, but I also think it's just in his mind, things have to be a certain way, and mom's usually the one who does those things. As he's getting older, it's getting better. But back to Nashville, when we got there, we were a day late, so we were literally only in Nashville for less than 48 hours, which was kind of hell. You know, because as soon as we got there, all of a sudden, he was like, nope, I'm gonna stay. I'm staying in this room, I'm good, you guys can go do what you want. I was like, well, I'm not gonna leave you in the room by yourself, so one of us has to stay with you. So we had to take turns, whether it was my other child or my husband or me took turns staying in the room with him while we tried to still have a vacation. When he would leave the room, he decided things have to be a certain way and we're going to make everything happen 15 times over. So I would have to go up and down escalators 15 times because he didn't step right or he didn't do it right. I got stuck in an elevator for 23 minutes because people kept getting in and out of the elevator and pushing buttons and they weren't allowed to push the buttons and he didn't want them in the elevator, and so it was like a long time before we could get off that elevator. But these are just like random things that is autism. I mean, I really don't know how to tell anybody what to do with it. All I know is that you learn as you go. As he's gotten older, there's things where I'm like, oh, okay, not gonna do that again, note, you know? And then the next time I try to prepare for it as much as I possibly can. And then all of a sudden it's something different. And I'm like, oh, great, now I gotta figure out how to do that one too, you know? What I used to do with road trips with him is I found some, not duct tape, but like tape, and it's a road, and I would take it and I put it across the top of the car, and then I had all these little visuals of like a gas station, food, you know, like break time, stuff like that. And I would take a little car and I'd be like, okay, we're going here. And at first I had, I screwed myself on this one, but I had timeline, you know, I was like, oh, we're leaving at 6 and then we're gonna do, you know, and I had this whole timeline, and I remember coming back and I kept moving the car and all of a sudden it was like 7:11 maybe, it was like 7:12 or something. And we pulled into Bismarck coming back. Well, I said we weren't getting back till 7:30. My other son had to pee, my husband wanted to get out of the car. And we had to drive around until 7:30. We could not pull into the driveway, we could not go home because I had on there 7:30. So note to self, didn't do a timeline anymore. I was just like, approximate, and you try. I mean, you try to just get him over whatever you think he's going to maybe have an issue with, but it still, I mean, it still happens. And as he gets older, these things are a little bit better. When he was 6, I was introduced to products. Everybody comes at you with everything. Oh, your kid has autism. Oh, you take this. I'll give him this. I'll do this. Oh, he should be on this supplement. And you're just like, okay. enough, you know, I've tried everything, I've done everything, but there was this one product that my girlfriend came to me with, and I had my other kid try it first, and it really helped him with just promoting clarity and removing brain fog and helping with like depression and anxiety and all this stuff, and I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna try it with Edison. I gave it to him for 6 weeks, and he literally went from nonverbal to verbal. He stood in my kitchen one day. This is when he actually started talking to us. And he was just like, Mom, microwave, oh, fridge, oh. And I was like, oh my God, is this what he's thinking as he's standing in the kitchen, like jumping? Because there would be times where 25 minutes would go by and I wouldn't know what he wanted. I had no idea what this kid needs. And I would just stand there and you like want to rip your hair out because you don't know what to do and you don't know how to help him. Same with when he was sick. I don't know what's wrong. I'd have to try to figure out what's wrong. And I would just literally go off of my instinct. Like, what could this be? What am I feeling? And then I would try to just figure it out that way, you know? So I have friends that have kids with autism that are still nonverbal, that are 13, that, you know, break TVs or, you know, get really upset or, you know, may defecate in their hands and rub it on walls. And like, there's so many different things that can happen, and I always just try to, you know, remember my blessings, that he, you know, he's not in a wheelchair, he has all of his limbs, he's, you know, you gotta just kind of keep pushing through and go with whatever is thrown at you, because we'll get through it. And as he gets older, it gets better, and now that he's actually speaking, it's a lot easier to understand what he needs. But it is really, you know, it's the social part of it. He can't just go and make friends. He can't just, I mean, he has a lot of friends because people like him, but he doesn't know how to go, hey, I want to play with you, or hey, let's go play a game. He has started to do that just recently. This year, he has started to wanting to go to bed by himself and tying shoes. When he's 11, he's finally tying shoes. I still have to help him in the bathroom. He will not wipe himself with number 2. There's things that he's getting over and becoming more mature about, but I feel like the biggest struggle with him is the control of, you know, even tonight, I was like, I gotta go, bud, and he was just like, no, you can't leave, and he was crying when I walked out the door. It's really hard for me to leave him, but I also gotta realize that he's gonna be okay. He's fine, he's at home with dad and brother, and I gotta still like live my life a little bit and work, otherwise we won't have our house, so, or his internet that he needs. Because that's another thing, like if the internet goes down, I literally have to get a hotspot on my phone. This is another thing I learned. We were on vacation one time and the internet went down in the house, and I was like, oh my God. Like, this is not, like, I have to call Verizon right there and put a hotspot on my phone, like, right now. Then I made the mistake of going to the grocery store with my phone and left everybody at the house. And then I came back to full-on craziness because I left with the hotspot, which I forgot. So, yeah, you just try to, you know, there's so much, and I don't really know how far I should go without, maybe there's some questions that I could answer, but I brought Kira with me because Kira actually became my babysitter when she was 14 with my first child. And then I was pregnant with Edison, and she has been with Edison his whole life. When she graduated high school, and I'll let her tell her story, when she graduated high school and went to college, she was working at Pride. And then I got her to switch to Ann Carlson because Edison was at Ann Carlson. And between her schedule and his schedule, I could never use her, and I wanted her with him. And so she did get a job at Ann Carlson, and Edison was with her for quite some time. Well, then she kind of moved up the ladder, and then she has since then gone to West Central Human Services, which I can let her talk about that. But I wanted her to come because she is very informed on services and programs and things that you can do basically to help, because when I found out, I had no idea. Like, I didn't even, honestly, I'm still not completely, I don't understand everything that is offered to him, because sometimes things aren't completely explained unless you ask questions, and I've always been a little complacent, I guess, with that, because I rely on other people to tell me what to do with my kid. you know, like, well, you tell me what's best for him. Like, you tell me, you work with kids with autism, like, you have to help me navigate what I should do here, you know, because I don't always know. So, yeah, that's kind of my story in a nutshell. I mean, unless we have a week. I could talk the entire time. There's a lot of moments where, you know, you just, it just, if things are not right, you know, it's hard to figure out what's not right, first of all, and then secondly, how do we fix it so it doesn't happen again? And as he's gotten older, I can reason with him, you know, like if he, going back to the closet when he kicked his shoes and had like a 45-minute meltdown or half-hour meltdown over his shoes touching everything else. Once it was over and he calmed, then I said to him, okay, we're not gonna do that again. You know, like, you've never had a problem with your shoes before touching other things. You can't just come home and all of a sudden make this an issue, and I'll try to like talk him out of it. And then the next day, if I see him like kind of starting again, I'll try to nip it in the bud. Doesn't always work, but I try. In being 11, his biggest thing in the last year with me is opening doors. Opening doors, running water, opening cabinets, cooking, being in the kitchen. He can't do any of it. Like, he will just, no, get out, no, can't do it, or he'll make you start over. Or he has to start over, or if he's eating goldfish and you open something, now he needs more goldfish. It's like, he has it's very rigid thinking, and he's got all these own little rules for himself, and then you have to abide by them. And if you don't abide by them, you know, people are like, oh, well, just, you know, you should spank him, or you should, you know, you gotta do this, or you gotta do this. And everybody has an opinion on how you should take care of your kid. But here's the thing, you can't do normal discipline with an autistic child. It just doesn't work. You know, I could have a consequence for my other child, like, you ain't getting this if you don't stop right now. Edison doesn't care. Like, there's, up until probably last year, there's nothing I could take away from him that would stop him from doing anything. He did not care. Like, what do you want? He wants M&Ms. You know, there's nothing big that he wants. You know, Christmas time, his birthday, what do you get him? I have no idea. Like, seriously, get him a pack of M&Ms, it'll make his day. Like, he's so simple in his thinking. But yeah, like, you just have to try to figure out, I guess, like, what the issue is and how to fix it and how to make it, I shouldn't say fix it, because you can't really like fix the problem, but you can make it so he can deal with it. You know, we talk about, is it a big problem? Is it a small problem? You know, like, can we move past this? Is it something that we have to really, you know, he'll say, well, I gotta cry about it. I'm like, you don't have to cry about it. It was, you know, I opened the cabinet for 2 seconds, I'm already done with it. Why are you still upset about it? And then he'll put me in timeout. You know, that's the big thing. He likes to put people in timeout, which is funny because he's never really gotten timeouts. He puts himself in timeout sometimes. But yeah, he's very good at scripting. He's very good at like mimicking people, and it comes across sometimes as malicious, but it's not. It's his way of interacting with people. He doesn't know how to just be like, hey, how are you today? Oh, good, you wanna go hang out with me? Let's go on the swings. Like, he doesn't really know how to do that. He sees somebody doing something, especially bad behaviors. Like, he'll pick up bad behaviors from other kids, which is kind of sad sometimes, because then he'll start doing it. Over the summer, at Ann Carlson, he was there 4 days a week, and they had him in a room still with younger kiddos that have more behavioral issues and just different maturity level. So he would come home and he'd be like, wah, wah, and like doing all this stuff, and he'd be like, why do you keep doing that? And sometimes it's like, you know, it'll drive you crazy. It's like, why are we pretending that we're a baby? We're a 10. Like, you know, we don't need to be acting this way. And then I found out that that's what was happening. And so then they actually removed him and put him with the older kids in a different room, and then he stopped. So it's like, he'll pick up his environment around him, and that's his way of interacting with you, because he doesn't really know how to fully have a conversation. He still has very broken sentences, you know, but he's at least talking and telling you things. But he's also still like, goldfish. I'm like, well, how do you say that? Oh, may I have goldfish, please? Okay, then I'll give you goldfish, you know? So it's, as he gets older, it's fun to watch him grow and do things, but yeah, it's always a struggle. It really is. Like, know, I never wanna complain about it. I never want to, you know, talk poorly about it, but it is hard at times, so, yeah. I don't know if you want questions for me first, or if I should just give it to Kira,
Yeah,
and she
Kira.
can kind of talk about some services.
to just raise our
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect. Okay, well, I'm just gonna give the microphone to Kira.
Yeah, so my name is Kira. My background is social work, that's what I went to school for. Yeah, like Crystal said, I kind of started out at Pride as a respite worker, absolutely loved it, loved working with kids with disabilities. And she got me to switch over to Ann Carlson, and I was there for about 5 years before there was opening at West Central Human Service Center. So now I'm a developmental disabilities program manager, so we do work a lot with kids with disabilities. So some of the services that we have, and my caseload, I'm a kids program manager, so my kids are from birth all the way to about 15, 16 years old. So for some of our younger kids, we do early interventions, if any of you guys are familiar with that. Typically, kids are referred to us from, it can be parents, doctors, really anybody can refer to us. And typically what will happen is a program manager like myself will come out and visit with you, fill out some paperwork, and then we send it over to, we have 2 early intervention providers within Bismarck Mandan. There's BSEP as well as the kids program. BSEP is obviously part of Bismarck Public Schools, and kids program is part of it in Mandan. They both serve Bismarck Mandan, so if people are like, oh, I live in Bismarck, we'll go with BSEP. You don't have to do that. So then what they do is they come out to your home and do an evaluation with your kiddo. So your main concern could be like gross motor or communication. They're still going to go through all areas of development just so that we're getting an overall picture of them and making sure that they don't have any other delays in any other area. So then to qualify, they have to have either 25% or more delay in 2 or more of those areas, or 50% or more delay in just one of those areas, or if they have some sort of like physical disability. So I mean, I have some kids with like Down syndrome or hip dysplasia, spina bifida, we kind of see it all. Or sometimes just an informed clinical, if maybe they don't technically qualify, but there's enough concerns, we can refer them. So then with early intervention, we always have a home visitor that can come into your home like once a week, once every other week, or once a month for about an hour. It's a very parent-driven program, so like Edison's some of his concerns with communication, so they can come over to the house, they'll kind of play with the kids, talk to you guys, what is your main concerns, like what is really struggling with this week? They'll give you strategies so that when they're gone, you can still work on those strategies with the kiddo. So then they'll come back the next week and kind of check in, see how things are going. So now that I've been in it for 2 years, it's a fantastic program. I really like that it's a parent-driven program, so we're giving you the strategies, but you implement it more so. So that's kind of our early infant development. So that goes again, birth until the age of, or the day before their 3rd birthday. We help with like transition into preschool if you guys are interested in it. But then after that, we have more services. Obviously, those are more for kids with disabilities, with the autism, Down syndrome, you name it. They typically have to go through some additional testing, as long as they have like a diagnosis, and then they look at like intellectually, so how is it going to affect them long term. So after that, then you're assigned a program manager like myself. We have 22 of us. There's 6 or 7 kids and however many adult program managers. But we kind of help link families and those kiddos with services. So if you're needing respite services, we'll link you to, it depends on staffing right now, it's horrible. We can link kids with like Ann Carlson, Poppy's Promise, Hit Pride, 7 of them, I always feel like I missed one. So they'll kind of help link those services for the kids. And then we see the kids every 3 months. We carry higher caseloads, so we just see them every 3 months, check in, see how things are going, make sure that they're happy with services. They get phone calls quite often from families, and we know I'm really upset about this, frustrated, and we kind of can be the middleman and help navigate everything, remediate everything. So there's so much to our services that sometimes you and I forget.
I mean, I've had the services for 9 years now, and I still don't know everything. So, I mean, I just have to ask more questions, to be honest, and that's the big thing I feel is that as parents, we gotta ask more questions of what's being offered and are they getting the services? Like recently, I just found out that my son gets 15 hours a week of ABA therapy and he's only receiving 5. And I was really upset about that, so then I involved the school at our IEP meeting and said, well, can I bring Carlson into the school and have them work with him at the school? And so we're gonna have a meeting about that now. You know, they told me that they're not used to doing that, but the other part of it is that he has an aide every day, and the aide has been pulled from him to go with other kiddos that need the aid more than my kid. So he's transitioning to Horizon next year. Horizon, like, I'm very nervous about this. He's excited, I mean, but I'm nervous. I mean, that's a really big school. The kiddos where he's at absolutely love him, take care of him, watch over him. There's gonna be a lot of kids there that do not know him. And I'm just worried about how that transition's gonna go. Plus he's reaching puberty or pre-puberty, which I can totally tell. So to me, now is like the most important time for him to receive all of his services and things to be staying as normal as possible. You know, today was the last day of his BCBA therapist, which has been his case manager for 2 or 3 years now, and he has taken huge strides with him. And he's the only male that he has working with him, which I feel is important because with males, for some reason, he is just more, he's always had female therapists, female teachers. I mean, we have 8 parents, they're all remarried, so there's 4 sets of them, and he's always been like grandma driven, you know, like it's just kind of the way he was. But yeah, I feel like these services, I'm hoping that the school can do something because I don't even know all the services until I started asking questions, and I'm like, well, what's he supposed to be getting? You know, like he gets, I think $5,000 of assistive technology that, you know, I think I've only used maybe $1,200 of it in 9 years because I don't know what does he need. We've gotten him a trampoline, we've gotten him an iPad, but he has to have, you know, through the waiver and everything, there's all this, the proper steps to take, and you have to get a recommendation from OT or a doctor or OT or somebody that works with him. And then you got to talk to them about, you know, the money. That's the other thing. Even though you're allotted this much money, they'll be like, oh, well, I found this trampoline for $300. I'm like, it's pink and it's 12 feet. Like, can we, you know, can I get one with a net around it? You know, like there's a reason why, you know, that one has springs. So you have to like talk through some of that stuff. But yeah, these services, I think there's a lot. Just like anywhere else, they're shorthanded with, you know, workers, which really puts a damper on things. But yeah, there's a lot, and I think the more questions you ask, the better off you are, because I still, after 9 years, don't know everything that's offered to me. So, sorry, I just wanted to have that.
No, I was just gonna say too, I did bring a brochure on West Central and some of the services that they have. I did not write down the names and numbers if anybody's interested in like infant development, but I can give that as well.
Okay, so I'm kind of naive. Yeah. So what was your pregnancy like? Same as your first one? Same as your first one?
He did not stop moving at all, like ever, throughout the entire thing. As soon as I could feel him, he did not stop moving. He tossed and turned, and then when he was born, he still didn't sleep. Like I was up with him all the time until he started to crawl, and then he'd finally take like an hour nap in the day, but that was it. Like he was up all night long. He was always up. And then it kind of subsided a little bit. I would say from like 6 months to a year and a half, he was pretty good and on a really good schedule. I started to notice things change after 18 months, and speculation, what it was after his 18-month shots. I can't say that anything was directly connected there, but that's when I did see changes in him. And then, yeah, so, I mean, yeah, he wouldn't stop moving. Like I would wake up all the time. And he was, like, I don't know, I made big babies, I don't know how. My first son was 10 pounds, 2 ounces.
Oh.
And he was 41 weeks, and I did have a C-section. I went in on my due date and had 12 hours of Pitocin, and that kid was not coming out. And so they were like, well, you could do a C-section, but I don't think he's any bigger than 7.5 pounds. And I was like, okay, I'll go home. And I cried because, you know, I was huge and wanted this kid out. And it was February, and there was a lot of snow, and I was in my husband's shirts and shoes. So I went back a week later, and I still wasn't, like, he wasn't coming out. Like, he was really big, so they were like, okay, you're gonna have to come in tomorrow, we're gonna do a C-section. I was like, sweet. So then when Edison came along, he came 19 days early and he was 9 pounds. So he would have been like an 11-pound baby. And I don't know why, I was small and my husband was small. I don't know why I made such big babies, but yeah, it was a good pregnancy. It was just, he didn't sleep ever. Like, he constantly moved inside me, and I thought, oh my God, he's gonna come out, he's never gonna sleep. And he didn't. But now he's like really good. And even like when it's bedtime, he goes to bed, like he's very structured that way, which is really good. Because I have another friend, like I said, and her son's nonverbal, he doesn't go to bed at all. Like, she does not sleep ever. Yeah. And I know some kiddos, like I have some autism groups, and we have a Midwest Autism Association is a nonprofit that I'm part of, over the board. We do fundraisers to help with autism and raise money for different things, whether it's free clinics, you know, for people who can't afford to get their kids screened, or grants. We have a grant program every quarter. We give away a grant program for a family. You just have to apply. But yeah, one of my friends on that board, her son is, he has a couple things other than autism, but he has to take medication. I've always tried not to go that route unless I absolutely have to, but I know that it works really good for some, and some really need it. But then again, you have to figure out what's best for, you have to kind of, it's trial and error. So you got to figure out which medications are going to work the best for that specific kiddo. But she has gotten to a point, she just told me last week that she's gotten to a point where he's like really good right now, and if he starts getting aggravated or aggressive, that she can say to him, it's time to take a medication, and he will just take it. Like, he doesn't fight her on it or anything. And then he calms and everything's great. So I think there's, other things you can do. Obviously, you're not a doctor, so you want to talk to your physicians about that. But yeah.
There's a question online. Would you say your son is high functioning with autism?
He is. I believe he has a photographic memory. I always refer to him kind of like Rain Man. If anybody has seen the movie Rain Man, which is funny because I didn't even know that was autism when I watched Rain Man, because I was quite a bit younger then. But yeah, he's math, academically, math, reading, all that stuff. It's like he's grades above. Socially, not, I would say on a social, emotional level, he's more of like maybe an 8-year-old, maybe 7, 8-year-old. But academically, he's like, and testing, like I just found out last year that you can opt your kids out of testing, which I had no idea. All these map testings and all these like things that they do, which I get, it's for the government to give you money, how much money do we need and all that stuff, but he would get so stressed out at school, and he would become very, he would rock a lot more, he'd be disruptive in class, he stims a lot, he does the squealing thing. I always call it the dolphin because it's very high pitched, and sometimes I have to say, you can't do that. Oh, sorry, mom, because it's like hurting my ears. But he will, like just for a long time, and when he does that in class, it's very disruptive to everybody else. And so his teacher did tell me last year, she's like, it really stresses him out for testing, and it shows him in like the 1 or 2 percentile because he can't be timed. You can't time him on answering you. He is delayed in answering you. So you ask him a question, you gotta wait a second for him to give you an answer. And all those tests are timed. So even though he's in like the 99th percentile academically in a lot of the categories, the tests would show that he was like 1 to 2%, in the 1 to 2 percentile. And I was like, okay, we're done with this. Like, so I opted him out of all the testing. And I don't know how it's gonna go in middle school or how that works, but for now, that's what I've done, just because.
How about like any foods? Does any foods, you know, like they say red dye 40 or whatever it is, does any
So-
foods affect them differently?
Probably, however, when Edison, this is the other thing. So my older son has what's called ARFID, Avoidant Restrictive Food Intake Disorder. Never heard of it, didn't think it was a thing. I eat anything and everything you possibly put in front of me. How can you not eat food, right? My older son did not eat food. Long story short, after 9 years, all the doctors and everything that he went to said, too bad, you're taking him to the food clinic in Fargo. So it's a 6-week program, and from 8 to 5, every 15 minutes, the psychiatrist feeds your kid. And sit in a room and just same expectations, like eat your food, you know, and give them basically 15 minutes to eat 1 bite, right? It's like a baby spoonful of like a pear. Be like, you eat that, you can go back to your room, play on your electronic, 15 minutes later, you're coming back, we're gonna do this again. So I had to finally take him to that. My older son did not eat anything, and Edison watched that for years. He watched older brother not eat stuff. You could put anything in front of Edison and he would eat it, and I was like, oh my God, man, they have a kid that's eating. Like, this is great, like I can make goulash. I don't know if you guys know goulash.
Yes.
But he would eat it. I mean, he would eat cheeseburgers with the onions and the pickles and the mustard, like everything, like whatever I put in front of him. And then Vincent, my older one, well, it was COVID year, so 2020, we had to go to Fargo for 2 weeks, and that was hard on Edison. Mom was gone, but I kept coming back. I think I drove to Fargo 7 times within that 2 weeks. Like, I'd go for a couple of days and I'd come back. My mom would go, and then my husband would go, and we were taking turns with Vincent because Edison was at home. Well, as soon as we got back, he started to not eat anything, except for specific things. Unfortunately, some of those specific things have a lot of that stuff in it. So if I could change his diet, he might be better, but he will not allow me to do that, I think, unless I were to take him to that clinic, and I don't want to do it again. Like, it's, and maybe that's selfish of me, but I mean, he eats hot dogs, he eats strawberries and oranges, goldfish crackers and goldfish crackers. And if you do not have his goldfish crackers, we have a problem. So the big goldfish cracker thing, he goes through one of those about every 2 days, maybe I could get 3 days out of it. So I've been trying, and he wants more. He wants like 8 times in a row. They're like, I need more, please, I need more, please. So I'm like, okay, so now I've started to give him just like a layer at the bottom of his bowl, because I know he's gonna ask for it like 5 more times. And then I'll be like, okay, now you have to have, you know, oranges, or now you have to have strawberries. So he has fruit and veggies every day, but not the servings that he should have. And he used to do bananas and blueberries too. I mean, he went on a massive kick of those, and now he's given them up. Like, he'll just randomly decide he doesn't want it anymore. Every Monday he gets Big Boy, except for last Monday when they were closed. That was a big problem. You know, watch College Had walk there and be like, go work, because my son needs his purple cow. But it's the only time he will have like dairy or a little bit of protein, which is sad to say, but that's what I can get out of the purple cow. So I have no problem if he has a good day on Mondays. He has guitar lessons on Mondays, and if he does good, he gets to go to Big Boy. So we're always on the line on Mondays. But yeah, he's very restrictive in what he eats now. And so recently what I've done is I took a whiteboard that I had on my fridge, and I would unfortunately only have the 4 top things that he'll eat, which is hot dogs, peas, loves peas, hot dogs, peas, strawberries, and oranges. And I make little check marks there. And I started with pick one. You know, like every night you gotta at least eat some kind of dinner. Dinner time at our house is non-existent. We maybe sit down at the dinner table 1 or 2 times a week. My other son's in football, so he's gone until 6:30 at night. I'm in real estate. By the time I get home, Edison's in therapy until 5:30, 6, you know, so it's like by the time we get home and everything, it's like everyone just kind of scatters and does their own thing. And with growing up with a son who didn't eat anything, it was hard for me to cook, and you throw your hands up after a while and you're just like, okay, we're getting food dudes, like everyone can order whatever they want, you know, because I can't cook 4 different meals. And I did it for a while and then I just couldn't do it anymore. Edison doesn't like to eat with us all at the table. He likes to pray. He likes the family thing, but he won't eat until we leave the table. And be like, can I have the table now? And then we all have to leave the table so he can eat. And he'll only eat one thing at a time. I can't put like a meal in front of him. I used to be able to, but now it's like, I want peas. Okay, now when my peas are done, now I want strawberries. Okay, now I want my goldfish, and now I want a cookie. And it's like, you know, so I got him up in the last 2 weeks. I've been very proud of myself. Actually, last night this just happened. I moved it up to pick 2, you know, like pick 1, pick 2, because if you give him the option to have control, even though you have the control of, okay, but you're gonna eat, but I'll let you decide what you wanna eat and in what order, right? And so that helps him in a sense, because now he feels like he has control over the situation. So instead of just refusing me, he's like, oh, okay, well, I want this. Well, now he's up to 2, and then he pick, okay, I want this one first, and then I want this one second, you know? And last night, for the first time, and I still have picked 2 on there, he picked 3 choices. So I'm like, ooh, we're getting somewhere, you know? So it's like, you just gotta keep trying to figure out how to make the kid eat, you know? And get off the darn goldfish. I think for a whole 2 years, it was Chex Mix. It was cheddar Chex Mix, and he would only eat the pretzels out of it. Just the pretzels, right? I actually emailed Frito-Lay and asked them, and sometimes I pull the autism card. My son has autism, and he really loves the cheddar pretzels. You can't try to fake it. You can't buy the other ones. Like, he knew if they were Chex Mix or not. I would go through maybe 5 bags of Chex Mix a day and just pull out the pretzels. And sometimes those bags only had 5 pretzels in them, and I was livid. I'd be like, oh my God. I just went through 3 bags, and then I would give them to all my neighbors. My neighbor has a daycare, and I'd be like, here you go, without the pretzels, here you go. Like, I took all the pretzels out. But yeah, he's, with eating, it's been very hard. And I watch sometimes and I think, you know, I wonder if he wouldn't stim as much if I could just get him eating properly, or, you know, I mean, there's a lot of studies about that say, you know, but this kid loves fruit snacks. And he's so restrictive that I have to give him the little things. I mean, he'll only eat like 6 things. So if half of them are bad, I don't know what else to do, you know, like this is all he's going to eat. But I just continue to bring it up. Like, he used to eat chicken nuggets all the time. Like, how about a chicken nugget? Or how about a hamburger? Or how about, like, hey, we're gonna have pizza tonight. You wanna try pizza? No, I don't do that. No, I don't eat that. No thanks. I'm fine on. You know, I'm just like, but you're not, you know? So, yeah, I don't know how many years we're gonna have to go before. I'm just hoping he'll gradually grow out of it. And at M. Carlson, there's also an OT there, and she's been working with him on food and brushing teeth. Like, he finally brushes his teeth by himself, not always the best. He's been put under 3 times actually, just for dental work. He has 4 silver teeth already, because they're still baby molars, but they were that bad. So, and he won't let dentists look, so they have to get him out, and that's really, really hard to do. But I've done it 3 times, and he has a dentist appointment on Monday, so we'll see how that goes. Every year I'm hoping he'll let them look and do stuff, but the only way they can get x-rays or clean or do anything is to put him out. So, yeah, it's hard. And it's getting hard, like I say, as soon as Vincent came back and Vincent was eating things, you know, like, oh my God, like this kid had never eaten anything. He'd never had fruits or vegetables in his life. He'd never had so many things. I mean, that's a whole other story. But he's eating things, and Edison started watching that, and then he got this big medal from Sanford. I mean, it was heavy, like a gold Olympic medal. And he was like, this is the first time I've actually, because I never really do participation ribbons. I don't, you know, I'm just like, you know, throw it in the garbage, you know. And he was like, this actually was like something I earned. Like, I actually earned this medal. And then they gave him one for Edison, to go home and do these things with Edison. And I was like, yeah, we're gonna teach him how to eat. Like, this is gonna be great. He just gave up everything at that moment. So it was kind of like a win with one, and then now we're backtracking with the other, or backpedaling, I should say, but it is what it is, we just keep rolling with the punches. As long as he's growing, which he is, I just keep doing what I can. Yes, ma'am.
How is he with clothing?
You know, he's actually never been sensory with clothing, except for he doesn't want to put pants on. So I'm having a really hard, right now it is, he goes through these spurts. There was a whole year where he wouldn't take his snow boots off, and we even went to Arizona. My mom has his second home in Arizona, and he wouldn't, like, all he wore was his snow boots down there the whole time, and it was like 90 degrees. Like, wouldn't even wear flip-flops or anything like that. Now it's time to switch to pants, and he refuses, so he's like, I'll just wear my snow pants over my pants, or over my shorts. And I'm like, well, okay, if you wanna take the time to put snow pants on, then you can. But I did print off one of the charts that say temperature-wise, what you should wear if it's 100, 90, 80, 70, 60, and so I keep saying, hey bud, like, last week it's 43 degrees is the high. I was like, you gotta like put some, he's like, nah, I don't do any of that. Well, I got him to bring a jacket and bring the snow pants, and the school was like, he won't. He was outside like 20 minutes, wouldn't put either one of them on. I was like, oh, I guess we're gonna get sick. Wait for that, you know, but he was fine, he didn't get sick, so that was good. But as far as like tags or anything like that, he's really good. My other son is very sensory. He does not like any kind of seams and underwear and socks. He used to pull his pants way up above his belly button. That was a big thing for about 1.5 years, and then he finally stopped. But Edison is good with the clothing for the most part. But he doesn't like long sleeves or long sleeve shirts. So, yeah.
What are some ways that you found to take care of yourself and feel like you are making that load that you're carrying?
She had coffee with me.
Come on, that did
That
not
was
like bring
probably
her
more
down.
torture, actually.
You know, one of the things on the autism waiver, one of the things that they really believe in is respite care. I'm supposed to get 40 hours a month in respite care, which is essentially babysitting, right? They believe we should be able to go out and do things and just have moments with our kids. I do try to go on a trip a year. My mom, thank God for her, she will fly back. She lives here too, but in the winter she's gone, and she comes back like 1 week out of the month. And if I want to go on a trip, I just work it out with her, and then she'll come back and help. And then also Kira's still on my respite, so like if we're going to Vegas for the UND hockey game at the end of the month, and I was like, we haven't been anywhere without our kids in 16 months, and I'm very excited to go without my kids for 4 days. And so I already said, Kira, my mom's gonna have a kid, you're gonna have to take one to school, and the other one my mom's gonna have to take, so she's like right there helping too. But that helps. The only problem with it was for the first 5 years, they never had enough help. And so I was only getting like maybe 5, maybe 10 hours a month. So then I started doing self-direct respite, where I can pick my own people. They just have to go through the process, have to be 18, can't be living in your house. Very easy. So I had like my niece, you know, like I have family members that can do it. And then they pay them, essentially to babysit for me. That's about, I mean, I don't know, I try to do as much as I can without feeling guilty about it, you know, like I play volleyball on Wednesday nights. That's also a problem sometimes. I have to be home at a certain time, you know, I can't really like go out and have drinks unless it's early, and because I'm like, okay, if I don't get home by 8:30, he's not gonna take a bath, because 8:30 is bath time. So if it's even 8:31, he's not gonna do it. You know, so it's still restrictive. Whatever I do is always restrictive, because he's always on my mind, and his schedule's always on my mind, and unless my mom's here. My mom's here, I'm gone. I'll be like, take him, I'm gone, you know, because he doesn't care about me when my mom's here. Like, it's the one person, out of the 8 parents, it's the one person where I can just end her. I can just leave, like, and not have to stress or worry about, you know, what's going on, but I just keep telling myself he's getting older, and as he gets older, I'm gonna have more freedom. So that's pretty much all I do.
She's also very career driven. She owns the Core, which is a realty company, so.
I just
Yes.
opened my new brokerage I've been in real estate for 11 years, so in my 10th year of real estate, I opened a new brokerage last year, and that was pretty demanding. And so
She gives back to the community a lot. She does a big thing for ambulance heroes, ambulance and PD and all kinds of stuff.
first responders, doctors, nurses, teachers, aides, people that take care of my kid, like we give 25% of our commission back to buyers and sellers. So,
Yeah, so thanks. I was gonna say you make a really good foster parent, but
Oh.
enough on your plate.
Yeah, I don't know if I can handle that, to be honest. I mean, God bless all of you. I seriously, like, I don't know if I can handle it, so. It's, you know, and people are always like, people say that too, how do you handle it? How do you do it? I mean, you just do it, just like you do everything else, right? Like even when you have a kid and you don't sleep and you're like, how am I functioning? Like I'm like a zombie for like 3 months, I haven't slept at all, but you just do it. It taught me a lot of patience, which was one thing that I did not have in my life. And then God gave me Edison. It was like, you're gonna learn patience. And I still don't even have patience. I mean, there are many times where either I go out to my garage and scream, or my husband goes out to the garage and screams, and we come back in and we're like, okay. You know, because here's the thing that I know, especially with Edison, is when you're in the moment, it is pure hell. Like you're just like, how are we gonna get through this? And as soon as it's over, that kid will flip a switch like nothing happened. It is like that, everything that you just went through and the emotional exhaustion and everything that you just went through, like didn't even happen to him. And he just moves on. And then you're just sitting there like, oh, like can we go to bed? Like this is like, the day is over, it's 6 o'clock, we have to go to bed, you know? And he's just like happy as a clam, like nothing happened. And we all have to figure out how to deal with that, especially my other kid, which he is the most amazing brother in the world. But he has had to sacrifice everything, you know, for his brother, so, yeah. Yeah.
Any final questions?
Did you say how old is your oldest son?
He's 13, he's 8th grade, yeah. So, he'll be 14 in February, 2.5 years, they're exactly 2.5 years apart. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, feel free to catch them, ask any additional questions here. Want to make sure we're respectful of everyone's time and the time we have the babysitter secured, so we're at that 7:45 mark. Couple things just to mention, that this door prize thing, are you gonna draw a name out of that? While she's doing that, just a reminder, December is our annual business meeting. We'll be electing 2 new officers, vice president, which is the role that Amber has been serving in, and treasurer, which is the role that Michaela has been serving in. You can get more there is information out there posted you can find, but we are going to be putting out a short survey just to gauge if you're interested, if you think somebody else would be good at it, and any other items you feel like need to be covered at our annual business meeting. And also just to gauge interest, so the 4 officers largely set up, we're here early, we're doing this. Want to see if there's any interest in people who are just like, I don't want to serve as an officer, but I would, a couple times a year, come early, help set up, welcome people, do things like that. I think that would be awesome to get some people involved. You don't have to make the full commitment to a role, but maybe you want to help and serve in that way. So,